What's up, family, and welcome back to the channel. For this video, I actually want to deviate a little bit from my normal. Well, I say it's a deviation, but I guess it's really not. What I want to do in this video is share some information with you that I've worked on compiling over the past few years that I've often shared in mentorship programs, training and development programs, primarily for personal and professional development. And it's somewhat of a framework or a model that I created shortly after deconverting. Well, it was probably about 5 years after deconverting. And it was my way to wrestle with really getting superstition, um, you know, I want to say out of my life, right? But the truth of the matter is, superstition is a very integral part. And not, I don't mean integral as important, but it just means integral as in it's there. It's a part of our lives. It's a part of our thinking processes. It's superstition has served us in the past and in the ancient past by giving us shortcuts to information. We no longer need those shortcuts. In many cases, those shortcuts are outdated and unreliable as of now. But ideally, we will create new shortcuts that will become superstitions for future generations. And so, it is likely, just like with all things in entropy, it's a battle that we will have to consistently be engaged with. And so, obviously, kind of coming from the community building background that I come from and the organizational work that I come from, a major part of the work that I did was mentorship and was leadership and training. And so even after deconverting, that's work that I still continue to do. I still mentor people. I still offer consulting, counseling, training services like that. And to be honest with it, I'm fairly good at it. However, I am somewhat of a rogue when it comes to these things, which means and this has just been a part of who I am, who I've kind of been for as long as I can remember, is that I've always been this type of person where I'm not really comfortable with blueprints, especially when it comes to things such as personal development. And that's what a lot of motivational speakers, gurus, and other woo workers kind of offer. They all kind of guarantee that, oh, I have this blueprint, and if you follow my blueprint, it'll change your life. And then I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. And then you take a look at it, and I'm like, I don't even know if this even qualifies as a blueprint. And then not only that, there's no one, and this just from a data perspective, there's no one who has enough information about your life to be able to create a blueprint that will work for your life. We are variable creatures, which means all of our lives can vary significantly. The way that in such a way that we as human beings can experience the exact same upbringing and have drastically different outcomes and drastically different reactions to those upbringings. There are people who are raised in the lap of luxury and love it, and then there are people who are raised in the lap of luxury and are disgusted by it or resent it. And so that's just because we are all variable. We're different. We're individuals, even when we look alike, even when we sound alike, even when we have the same political labels, even when we have the same national labels. There is no label you can have for a human being that actually gives you any insight into that human, into who that human actually is. So because of that, I have kind of stayed away from trying to build things that are blueprints, but instead I try to build things that are models and that are frameworks, things that people can use almost like training wheels. And you just use this until you find something that's a little more comfortable for you. Because at the end of the day, I don't think, now surely I may create something that's helpful. I may create something that does bring some value to your life or generate something. That's an inside joke. But overall, I don't really have an expectation in my life that I'm going to create something that's going to be a perfect fit for anybody else. But I do have an expectation that, here's something that I've been using. It's been working very well for me, and I can share it with other people and they can adjust it to make it their own. And so that's pretty much what I do when I do mentor and when I do train and when I do consult and things of that nature. It's one of the things that I'm really proud of about my work is because it's so funny because now like I literally letting go of superstition, of religious superstition was gave me the freedom to let go of presupposition, period. So I do my best not to presuppose about anything, and I think that that helps to inform the work that I do, even beyond the YouTube channel. It informs my work because I get to learn from the people that I work with instead of just coming in and saying, "Nope, I have all your answers. I am the great and mighty DaranteLaMar. I know all things because I have an unction from the Holy One." I ended it with the scripture there, but But I did want to share this with you. So before we jump in, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, consider joining our community either on Patreon, YouTube, Discord, anywhere. We also have some excellent merch, and consider volunteering. So this is a model that I often share with my mentees, and it's something that's been incredibly helpful for me. And we my wife and I, we kind of go back and forth between calling this a maximization model or a harmonization model. Like we can't decide which one it is because I know for us it's kind of helped do both things, kind of helped to harmonize our lives, which was very important for me. Um, I don't know if you know, but like I have a million and one hobbies, and I don't treat them like hobbies. They're very important to me. So other than sharing content on this channel, as many of you know, I write books. One of my books is, yep, I had to make sure I was pointing in the right direction right there. Memphis, The Last Supper, which was the first novel that I wrote. And I'm actually writing several at the same time that come from that universe. And then, of course, I just released my first book that actually sheds light a little bit on where I stand theologically, which is Christ Held Up. And then before that, I had released two books, Significant and Parenting on Purpose. I have a few more books that I do plan on releasing by the end of the year. So I do a lot. But not only do I write, I also make music. Um, I have some decent vocals. Also write poetry. And then my wife and I, we run a nonprofit, DLDD World Group, which is this channel is a product of that nonprofit. Pretty much everything you see us do is a product of that nonprofit. And so I don't know how I got on that rabbit trail, but yeah. So let's jump into this. This has been increasingly helpful for me. And like I've literally built a whole curriculum around this and some other things. For those of you know, I try to bring a little different nuance to conversations when I'm having them about religion and things of that nature, because I like to approach these things from a sociological aspect. And so I'm doing the same thing with this. So this model, if you will, and you can call it maximization or harmonization. Doesn't matter to me. You can give me credit for it or not. Either way, I don't care. That's why I'm sharing it on YouTube. It's free. I do dive much deeper with my uh, mentees and my classes and stuff. But this information is generally helpful for anybody who's like, I have way too much going on in my life, or I just can't seem to find, to get my footing under me. I can't seem, nothing in my life works right, which that was my thing. For 28 years, nothing in my life worked, and actually would probably say about 34 years. Nothing in my life worked. And I could not understand why. And a major reason why I couldn't understand why is because I was engaging my life superstitiously. So like when things didn't happen, I was always looking for the ghost in the machine. I was always looking for the man behind the curtain that this is either, God is trying to show me something, the devil is trying to show me something, maybe angels are doing something and I don't know, maybe someone's praying against what I'm doing, maybe there's some witchcraft. And so you have all of these things, none of these things which are substantiated, which really keeps you from actually honing in on the very real things and sometimes very simple things that you can do to change your life drastically. And when you don't know that, the danger is that you can literally live the majority of your life thinking that you have no options. You can live the majority of your life thinking that there's nothing for you to do. And that's truly unfortunate. And so I kind of built this model to help me. And then I started sharing it with my mentees to help them. And so the first thing about this model, or the first point on this model, is nutrition. And when I say nutrition here, I'm not necessarily talking about your diet or your food diet, which that is absolutely important. That just wasn't the focus of this model. What we're really talking about here is how you feed your sense of self. Um, like, what is the what is the script that you're running on? And I'm using this language almost artistically, but it's just something that I've noticed in my encounters with people is that most people are running on and I don't want to say most, but many people are running on a media induced script, you know. And I'm not trying to paint media as the big bad here. Many of you know that I don't believe life is so simple as having big bad wolves and things of that nature. I think people are just people and they're trying to do what they think is best, and many times what we think is best is harmful or wrong. um but this is definitely about feeding your sense of self. And I realized at a very young age that we program ourselves. I watch this with my friends, I watch this with myself, I watch this with my family. That we program ourselves, we program ourselves with scripting, and neurological studies have, in my opinion, borne this out in a way that should be somewhat interesting to us, in the sense that our kind of choices are almost pre-made before we make them, in this place that we sometimes call the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind. We really wrestle with what to call it there, but these choices are, in many cases, for lack of better words, predefined or predetermined. Now, there's still some mechanisms within us that are contributing to that, but what that insinuates is that those things are typically predefined or predetermined based off of the information that we've already exposed ourselves to, or the environments that we've already exposed ourselves to, which again is kind of that scripting that you hear, that you can kind of hear from people. Because for example, many times you can engage a person on a topic that they seem really passionate about, right? They seem very, very passionate about the topic, but when you begin to speak to them about the topic, you realize that they don't have anything on the topic other than anecdotal type of references, which actually demonstrates that they don't have a genuine interest in the topic, but that they have a very surface level attachment to the topic, which will typically be based off of the programming that they've subjected themselves to, whether that programming be, what they read in the newspaper, what they watch on television, or what websites they peruse on the internet. And it's not just some people are like this and some people are not. I mean, this is really the most of us. And it's almost, it's life. It's what you do. You are a reflection of the information that you expose yourself to, and especially the information that you approve of. So watch this. If there's information that you listen to and you approve of the information without holding yourself accountable to verifying the information, then you will make yourself the type of person who repeats passionately unverifiable information. And so this is what we mean by nutrition is like, how are you feeding yourself? How are you feeding your self-awareness? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you strengthening your autonomy? Sometimes, of course, we encourage people to partake in things like meditation and mindfulness practices, but this is so much deeper than that. For me, the nutrition aspect is really challenging yourself and asking yourself for everything you engage is why. And this was actually a major breakthrough in my life of realizing that, like, damn, dude, you can have a why for everything you do. And I'm not saying you have to. But for me, the question was, why haven't I? Like, and I've talked about my weight loss journey. This is obviously a part of that. Getting to the place of, why do I do this? Why am I eating this? Like that, like not just why, as in, well, why are you doing this? But no, what's my reason? You know what I'm saying? What's my rationale? How does this benefit me? And what I begin to realize is that the majority of the things that I was engaging in my life, whether it was food, whether it was media, whether it was relationships, the majority of the information in my life, I was not making a requirement on that information to be beneficial. So it was just like, okay, why am I listening to this? Oh, because it's fun. That's fine. But then when you get into those places in life where you really need helpful information, That's when you kind of realize, oh damn, I didn't give myself the information that I needed. And for me, it kind of traces back to the old Aesop's fable. Was it the grasshopper and the ant? You know, it may be something like that, where you have one that's just fiddling away, doing things just to have fun, and you have another one that understands this. That's just like, hey, life is coming. I think for me, the biggest thing, like one of the biggest revelations for me on the other side of my religious superstition was just like entropy, and it was just like, oh damn, like yeah. So like a lot of things that I've just thought was the devil, it's just like entropy, like and this is one of the things that I teach is like management is a way of life. And what's funny is like I used to teach this even before I left superstition. I may have shared this in one of my videos. It was something that I had learned from the story of Joseph when he goes to Egypt and he has these dreams, in the narrative about the bad corn eating the good corn, and the bad pigs eating the good pigs or good cows, something like that. But either way, the moral of the story was that bad times will eat good times, you know. And so you have to learn how to manage your good times in expectation of bad times. Like, and these are life principles that they're not necessarily objective truths, because, there are different variables that can change that for different people's living, conditions. But for my living conditions, I begin to realize like, dude, you have not paid attention to the entropy that has been ever after you, and you've not learned how to manage your life. And then I begin to, I think I remember, I don't know if it was a sermon series that I taught or what, or it might have just been something I did with a small group in the church where I started talking about that famine might be the result of mismanagement. And so that we should be looking for, more ways to manage our lives. And this is, I guess this was kind of some of the outwork of that. It was me trying to find a better way to manage my life. And so I started with my nutrition. There are things that I literally said, okay, I'm not watching this anymore. I'm not listening to this anymore. Um, the focus is how much helpful information am I consuming in the areas of my own self awareness, self care, and autonomy. How is my nutrition, my routine consumption, contributing to my expected outcomes? A problem that I remember encountering after leaving religious superstition is because I felt like I'd missed out on so much information. I was glued into everything, especially the history of Black folk and the plight of Black folk. But very much like my religious days, my emotions were still in control. Um, it's no secret that I have had Black nationalist tendencies. I do not hide that. And at one point in my life, I realized that I was actually trapping myself into trauma by keeping certain type of videos ever present. And then these were videos that I could only describe now as trauma porn, because there was no intent or utility to intervene. It was stuff that I was keeping in front of me, not purposefully trying to keep myself upset and angry, but I was definitely trapping myself into the trauma. And I remember one day, and this is when my family was living in a hotel. I remember kind of pulling away from the television for a moment and saying, dude, how is this information helping you? And how can you use this information to help? And it was a hard conversation to have with myself at the time because it almost felt like betrayal not watching my people get gunned down on television. But then I realized, like, no, you're not helping by just watching it on television. You're just feeding the media frenzy, if anything. And then I realized, like, if I really want to help, I have to get into position to help. And nobody's going to position me there, you know. Perhaps there will be some people one day who be like, oh no, I really believe in the work that Darante does and blah, blah, blah. And I want to position him to help. Sure, that may happen. But at this juncture in my life, I realized that I had no reason or rationale to believe that that was going to come. And so for me, and I'm not saying this is anybody else's story, but for me, I realized that I was being unreasonable with my engagement with my life, um, and that I needed to spend some critical time in reflection of what information that my life would need to put me in a position to be able to make a difference and to be able to help. And that, we can have arguments about whether I should have to do that or not. But I am not a person who obsesses with should. When I let superstition go, I kind of let should go as well. Um, who's in control of should, you know? And so my 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 autonomy is that I'm really just in control of me, and so I really can't afford as of now to preoccupy myself with what other people should do, or with what other people should make easier. What I can afford to preoccupy myself with is what I can do, um, and what I will do. So that's the nutritional aspect, and just healthy indicators that you have a good nutritional routine is just that you have a confidence in self, that you have a routine for continuous improvement. And I have never seen confidence without continuous improvement. Anywhere that I've seen what looks like confidence without continuous improvement, it was actually arrogance, Dunning-Kruger effect. Which I actually talked about that in my first book, Significant. So that's another reason to get that one. But yeah, confidence in self, a routine for continuous improvement, and autonomy of choice. And I know I've spent a lot of time on just this first one, but you have no idea how important this is. When you're dealing with people who feel like they're struggling in life a lot, I promise you, start here. Just try it. Try it. Start here with them. Try to explore their routine with them and see if they have a beneficial routine, and not a routine that's beneficial to anybody else. Help them see, does your routine benefit you? Because what was wrong with my life, for nearly 2 decades, is that my routines benefited other people more than they benefited me, and more than they benefited my family. And because of that, those benefits that I was dishing out to other people were not sustainable. So I could only help you every now and then, because every time I'd help you, I'd be putting myself in a drastic hole where I wouldn't be able to help anybody else for a long time. So it wasn't a sustainable situation. But I highlight this because you'd be surprised how many people just don't have a healthy routine, how many people never learn how to feed themselves, how many people who never learned how to eat on purpose? How many people who never learned how to live on purpose? And when I say this, I don't mean living by anybody else's predefined expectations for your life, but I mean actually making decisions in your life that help you get to the outcomes that you want. I realize this is a major issue with a lot of people, that some people struggle very hard making decisions that lead them to the outcomes that they want, and that's a lot of times because of magical thinking that is typically enabled by bad, I'll just call it unhealthy nutrition. And some indicators for an unhealthy nutrition is when there is a over reliance on external support, chance, or superstition for decision making. If I have to pray before I make a decision, I'm not very confident in my ability to make decisions. If I have to flip a coin, you know, if I have to talk to a million people, fixing the flow, and that's what nutrition is. It's about the flow of information into your life. Updating the flow of information of your life. And I'm not saying it's like a one all be all. It's something you have to stay on top of. That's how entropy works. I think many times people are looking for a 5-step fix to their lives, and we have no evidence for such a thing. There's no 5-step fix. At this moment, there's not even a 50,000 step fix. Life is something that we constantly have to stay engaged with. All right, so let me move on because I've already spent a lot of time. The next one is support. So your nutrition, that's where you have to start, your flow of information. For me, what I advise people to do, especially if your life is not where you want it to be right now, and it's dark for you, and only you know what that is. I know what dark for me was, and it did not feel good, and I did not like it. The first thing that I can encourage you to do is change your entertainment to education. That's that's like literally one of the best things. But in order to do that, you have to believe that you're capable of acting on new information. Most people believe that they've done their absolute best in life and they can't do no more. Those people will do no more. If you believe that, nope, if I have the right information, I'm capable of adapting, I'm capable of adjusting, then you will be able to do incredible things with your life once you start kind of feeding yourself some helpful information. I know when I reviewed my life, I was like, damn, like 90% of the shit I listen to and watch is not helpful at all. It's not. And so I need to fix this. And now I do. So now it's the other way. 90% of the stuff I watch is incredibly helpful for me. That's how I can have these type of conversations. And it's not just that, oh, so you don't watch any entertainment. Nope. I just combined it. I do edutainment. Even the things that are entertaining to me, that they have to be stimulating some other interest of my life in order for me to find value for them. In other words, they have to have some type of nutritional value for the forward progression of my life, which is for some reason a word that I found out that some atheists do not like. Forward progression? Really? Wow. Okay. And honestly, it probably wasn't an atheist. It was probably just a troll. But this next one is support, and I'm gonna try to move through these other ones fast, because my goal is just to kind of share some of this stuff with you because I share so much, and I'm like, oh man, I don't share about this other stuff that I do. Speaking of which, in this Sunday session, that's what we're doing. We're taking a break before we start our next series, which our next series will be based on some of this information, which is called "Please Don't Stop the Music: How to Find Harmony in a Life Full of Chaos." Right? But next Sunday, this coming up Sunday, when I don't know when you're watching this, but you can find the video for sure. We'll just be doing a getting to know us episode. Where we're just going to do Q&A the whole episode about who we are and what we do, as a couple, as a family, and as nonprofit leaders and all that good stuff. So this next one is support. After I dealt with my nutrition, I started evaluating my sense of support, my support system. And the objective here is to build a nurturing and empowering environment through positive relationships and accountability. Um, and this really requires interrogating the quality of your relationships and not just the frequency of interactions. And that I find that to be a struggle for people many times. Like, because sometimes we do judge the quality of our relationships by the frequency of interaction. So you call me every day, we have a good relationship. I challenge that quite a bit because I remind people that most of our relationships have been relationships by convenience, and I'm not saying that's necessarily horrible, but I am saying that that does mean that we have not put much intention into our relationships. We've just treated them almost like spiritual wooey things that just happen, and I'm like, nope, relationships kind of have purposes and they have a variety of purposes. And those purposes can evolve, but if you don't have any intention there, you're going to have somewhat of a difficult time judging the quality of your relationships, or even feeling like you have the right to judge the quality of your relationships. You'd be surprised how many people don't feel comfortable saying, I don't think this person is a good friend for me. So healthy indicators that you have a good support system is that you have trust in your environment and that you can have daily constructive conversations, which means ha- just having conversations is not helpful, and I think I spent the majority of my life, judging my friendships on the fact that we could just talk about anything. I now kind of judge my friendships like, are we talking about anything constructive? Not saying that it always has to be constructive, but considering that our lives are in, disrepair, we should probably be constructing something. You know what I'm saying? And so now, when I look at healthy support systems, I look for daily constructive conversations and comfortable accountability. You know, the more uncomfortable accountability is, the less healthy this support system likely is. And so unhealthy indicators, of a not so good support system is feeling drained by your environment, unproductive conversations, and conflict arising from criticism. That's To me, that's unhealthy. And I may be a little bit of a stalwart there, but I don't believe that criticism should lead to conflict in a healthy support system environment. If we're here to support each other, then criticism shouldn't lead to conflict. Okay. The next one is productivity, where we encourage people to kind of drive purposeful effort and discipline to achieve meaningful contributions to your life. And I make that distinction over and over again, because the work that I've done, when you talk about contribution, that you often get some kickback, some resistance. So it's like, well, I shouldn't have to contribute to the world, and contribute is just means of capitalism. And I'm like, I understand these arguments, but what I want to know is, what does that have to do with you and your goals? That's what I encourage people, like, especially, and I be honest, and this, I don't know, this may be controversial. As a parent, I'm extremely passionate about this, because that's one of the things that kind of shook me, is realizing that I was making decisions, or better yet, not making decisions to improve my life, as if it was just my life and I had brought children into this world, you know. So for people without children, I'm less, aggy with, but with people with children, I'm like, no, you have a responsibility to do something. You brought these kids into this world. Please do not condemn them to your struggles, because you don't want to fight your struggles. We have this superstitious belief that life shouldn't be hard, and that life shouldn't be easy, or that life should be easy. And from the way that I look at things, I have no evidence that life should be easy. I have no evidence that life shouldn't be hard, and it's not even that I don't have any evidence of it. I don't have anybody that I would even trust in that position to make sure that life isn't easy, or that life isn't, or that life is easy, or that life isn't hard. Who would we trust? You know? So I realized that, like, no, you kind of gotta, if there's something in life that you want, you gotta be the person responsible for getting it, you know? And so you can do that with your productivity. Now, you do have a handful of people who just automatically believe, nope, there's nothing I can do to change anything about my life. Well, guess what? There's not going to be anything you can do to change your life. That's where you stand. But for those people who are like, well, maybe there's something I can do, then maybe you will find something you can do. Um, yeah, yeah. And this is what you will find out. And I like to use sports analogies for these. Not all the time, because I'm not even a high sports fan. But I do think there are some things we can learn from athletes when it comes to stuff like discipline and practice. As a matter of fact, when I talk through this with my classes and my groups, I normally use a few different analogies through. And so we have the analogy of the dancer, the analogy of the gamer, the analogy of the conductor, and there's one more. I can't remember it right now. But the analogy of the dancer is the one that we normally start the story off with, because I tell people to imagine, a professional dancer who's maybe not danced, in a while. And all of a sudden they get an invitation to be a part of a major performance. And, they haven't danced in a while. Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to immediately change their entire routine to align with their expectations for that performance. They're going to change their whole life, likely for the next 6 weeks to 3 months, for one performance. And to me, I think that's a beautiful illustration of often what it takes in life. That person is going to change what they're eating. They're going to change how they're spending time. They're even going to change their relationships. Everything they do, is going to be tied into meeting that goal. They're going to change their whole productivity experience. And those are things that you can do in your life. Um, and by the way, I'm not suggesting that any of this stuff is easy or cut and dry. These are just a different way to approach it. The last two, the next one is tolerance. So we go from nutrition, support, productivity, and then dealing with your sense of tolerance, which this is about empathy just as much as it is about resilience. This is about diversity just as much as it is about difficulty. This is about recognizing the importance of collective growth, which is why the second notch on this little hierarchy, if you will, is support. After you get your nutrition fixed good, and I don't even want to say fixed because these things don't exist like that. It's not like, oh, I get my nutrition perfect, then I focus on my support. Nope, it's just start with nutrition while you're working on your nutrition. Start working on your support system, start challenging and interrogating the way that you interact with others. And then after you've done that, after you started that, then let's go ahead and start working on things that you can do to be productive in your own life and productive for your outcomes. For example, if you want to be a really good parent, some productivity that you can start putting behind that and say, let me read some books about parenting, not necessarily to be convinced of what good parenting is, but to give myself some new information to wrestle with about parenting. You get the point. So tolerance, when you have a healthy tolerance, then you have recognition of others, you crave diverse and challenging experiences and viewing success. And then you begin to view success in the light of your responsibility and not in the light of anybody else taking from you or anything else. You begin to embrace diversity and difficulty almost simultaneously, which again, athletes, military, you see a lot of that there. I don't know if the empathy side, but but definitely because embracing difficulty is about embracing diversity, and some of the times, some of the reasons that we are against embracing diversity is because we are against embracing difficulty. This is too difficult. This is too hard. This is uncomfortable. And so, I help people to understand sometimes, not even sometimes, but most times you have to fix your tolerance levels. You're gonna have to be able to tolerate more, and that's tolerating other people's differences because other people don't owe you their uniformity, and that's also tolerating the differences or difficulty that life will throw because it will not change for you. All right, not until we change it. And then this last one is cooperation. That's typically where we end that conversation at on harmonization and maximization. Is that the goal to really get to a place where you have a life that cooperates with you, because remember that's kind of what this model was designed for, if you will. It was designed because I felt like my life was not cooperating with me, that my life didn't work, that nothing I did worked, that everything I tried was just wrong and couldn't work. And then by kind of walking myself through this sort of model, I was able to see that I was never really paying attention to the work. And that's my truth. It may not be yours. That was my truth. My life wasn't working because I wasn't working it. And this has now helped me along with some other things that I've created as well. It's helped me a lot, and so I wanted to share it with you. I am not telling you that you have to use this. As you should all know by now, my channel is not a channel where I advocate for what you should do. My channel is a channel where I share some of the things that I'm doing. I share some of the things that I'm thinking, and if it's helpful, I am just wonderfully grateful for that. And that makes me feel good. But yeah, so this last one is just really kind of about mastering, if you will, intentional living through collaborative efforts and purposeful choices. And that the healthy indicators that we're getting closer to this place is when you're in a place where you have the ability to act on your healthy impulses, you know? And I'll take this kind of back to the top. My impulse is to be concerned about Black lives being, killed almost indiscriminately was a healthy impulse. The unhealthy thing was that I didn't have an ability to act. Now, I'm not saying unhealthy in the sense that that means I was a bad person. I don't assign morality to ability to act, you know, not ability to act, I don't think, no, but, but it's more. realizing that, oh snap, I didn't have the ability to act. And it wasn't just that I didn't have the ability to act on that large issue. I didn't have the ability to act on even the small issues in my own life at the time. So it's the ability to act on your healthy impulses, the freedom to explore your personal capacity in life as a result of intentional processes. And that is something that, you kind of say you should want for others what you want for yourself. And that is kind of something that I want for others. Um, not enough where I try to push it on them, but I wish that everybody had the freedom to explore their personal capacity. I feel like that's been one of the biggest things that I've been robbed of in my life. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to take advantage of now, that I'm aware of it. And that's why I often describe myself as hyper productive. I'm making up for lost time, baby. You got to understand. Many of you may not have felt like you wasted your time, and that may be true, but I wasted my time. So I'm trying to make up for it. Um, and so that's it. That's the model. Nutrition, work on your nutrition, the flow of information in your life, to ask yourself, how does this information help me reach the goals that I want to reach? Your support system. How is my support system helping me construct my life and conversations? A lot of times we use friendships, or relationships as places to escape to, as opposed to places to build on. And I think relationships are highly valuable for building, not escaping. I mean, they're fun for escaping too, but building is fun too. Um, and then productivity, your own level of productivity, and you get to define that. I know in this country it's hard because when you talk about the word productivity, people get offended. And rightfully so in many ways, because some of us, especially my generation, we remember being told that, things that we were doing were useless that turned out to be like major industries today, i.e. gaming, you know. And so there's some trust issues there because somebody else really does not always get to determine what productivity looks like for you. For somebody, playing those video games for 8 or 9 hours a day was absolutely productive. And so what I've learned how to do is to tie productivity to desired outcomes. You know, what's your desired outcome? Not my desired outcome for you, but if you have a desired outcome for your life, there may be a way for you to get more productive to get it. And then tolerance, increasing your resilience as well as your empathy, being able to handle and appreciate difficulty and diversity. And then lastly, cooperation. And that, to me, in my mindset, that's what these kind of steps help you do, is get to a place where you can live cooperatively, you know, where you have a life that cooperates with you and where you actually understand the value of cooperation. I think that's what that helps do. Again, I know that this one was a little bit different, but I hope I've said something in this conversation that was of value to you. If you have any more questions about things like this, please feel free to reach out. And I think that's all I have. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the alert notification bell, consider joining our community, consider volunteering for our community, consider financially supporting our community, consider checking out our merch. All right, that's all I have. Until next time, keep rising and stay progressive and stay beautiful. I almost mixed those up. I'll holla.